There are moments in life when the presence of another person seems almost too significant to ignore, as if their existence is intertwined with the very pulse of your being. Yet, what we often fail to recognize is that these individuals are mirrors, reflecting not only our desires but also the hidden corners of our psyche. They illuminate fears we have avoided, wounds we have left unhealed, and the unacknowledged aspects of our character. The universe, in its mysterious wisdom, introduces these people into our lives with a purpose that extends far beyond comfort or companionship. They are catalysts, deliberately placed to awaken us, to force us to see what we might otherwise resist, the traits, shadows, and vulnerabilities that reside within us. It is not uncommon to resist this truth, to feel discomfort or even anger when confronted with the reflection of our own inner chaos or unresolved tension. This message, though unsettling, carries with it the profound invitation to confront these realities, to step into self-awareness, and to begin the journey toward a fuller understanding of ourselves. We are rarely aware of the extent to which we project our internal world onto others. When we form attachments, it is often less about who the person truly is and more about who we imagine them to be. We imbue them with qualities we desire, assign them roles they may never fulfill, and interpret their actions through the lens of our own needs and expectations. This projection creates a veil over reality, obscuring the true nature of the individual and replacing it with a narrative that is comforting, familiar, or emotionally compelling. When the universe presents a message that challenges this narrative, it can feel threatening because it destabilizes the illusions we have built. It forces us to confront the disparity between our imagination and reality, between what we want to see and what actually exists. In this confrontation lies both discomfort and opportunity, the discomfort of facing truth unfiltered, and the opportunity to disentangle our identity from dependency on someone else's reflection. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for emotional growth and self-liberation. The person before you may never conform to the ideals you have projected upon them, and that is not a failure of theirs, nor necessarily a failure of yours. It is a revelation, a chance to recognize that the attachments we cling to often serve to distract us from our own unhealed places. Emotional suffering arises not from the other person's nature, but from the persistence of our projections, the refusal to see them as autonomous beings with their own limitations and complexities. When we begin to perceive others with clarity, we reclaim a portion of ourselves that was lost in the mirage of imagined connection. This process requires courage, for it demands honesty with oneself and the willingness to embrace truth, even when it is uncomfortable or unwelcome. The universe's intervention through these reflections is not punitive, it is instructive. It encourages introspection, self-examination, and the acknowledgement of patterns that have long dictated our emotional responses. By observing the ways in which we project, idealize, or misinterpret, we gain insight into our own psyche, recognizing not only our attachments but also the fears, insecurities, and unmet needs that fuel them. This awakening is subtle, yet profound, for it shifts the focus from external validation to internal understanding. The person in our life is not simply a figure to love or depend upon. They are a teacher, a mirror, and at times a provocateur. Accepting this role allows us to move beyond superficial connections and toward relationships grounded in authenticity, mutual respect, and clarity. Through this lens, even the most difficult messages become instruments of personal evolution, guiding us to confront our inner world with courage, honesty, and a readiness to grow. Human attachment is rarely about the other person in isolation. More often than not, it is about the stories we tell ourselves, the expectations we place upon them, and the projections of our inner world that we unconsciously transfer onto their actions. We imagine they possess qualities that they may never have, or that they will fulfill emotional roles we have carefully constructed in our minds. In doing so, we are not responding to reality, but to a reflection of our own desires, fears, and unhealed wounds. This pattern is subtle, almost invisible, yet it shapes the entirety of our relationships. When someone enters our life, the initial bond often feels intense, magnetic, and undeniable, yet beneath this surface allure lies the more complicated reality. That much of our emotional energy is spent on the projection, not the person themselves. The universe often allows this mirroring to continue until the discrepancies between our fantasy and reality become undeniable, forcing us to confront the truth we have long avoided. The nature of projection is such that it distorts perception. We see not who a person truly is, but who we need them to be in order to feel whole, secure, or validated. Our minds create narratives that fill gaps, gloss over flaws, and justify behavior that aligns with our imagined story. This can lead to disappointment, frustration, and even resentment when the person inevitably fails to match our internal projection. Recognizing this tendency is an essential step toward emotional maturity. It requires the ability to distinguish between the individual and the image we have placed upon them, to separate our inner desires from the external reality. Only by disentangling these layers can we begin to engage with others authentically, responding to them as they are, rather than as we wish them to be. The challenge is that confronting projection is rarely comfortable. It demands honesty with oneself, a willingness to observe the ways in which our mind has constructed illusions, and the humility to admit that our suffering is often self-generated. The person we are attached to may never meet the expectations we have unconsciously imposed, and that realization can evoke feelings of loss or disillusionment. Yet it is precisely in this confrontation with reality that growth occurs. By seeing the other person clearly, without the veil of projection, we reclaim our emotional autonomy. We stop seeking fulfillment from someone else and begin to cultivate wholeness within ourselves, discovering that the strength of connection lies not in dependency, but in mutual recognition of truth and complexity. The universe orchestrates these dynamics with subtle precision. Those we are drawn to serve as mirrors, reflecting not only what we desire, but also what we have neglected within ourselves. Each disappointment, each revelation, each moment of clarity is an invitation to deeper self-awareness. By learning to recognize projection, we gain insight into the patterns that govern our emotions and relationships. This awareness does not diminish love or connection. Rather, it transforms it, allowing interactions to be rooted in authenticity rather than fantasy. It is through this process of seeing clearly, of disentangling projection from reality, that we begin to experience relationships in a profound and liberating way, embracing both the individuality of others and the integrity of our own emotional landscape. Discomfort is often the first signal that the universe is attempting to communicate a deeper truth. When someone we care about behaves in ways that challenge our expectations, or when the reality of a person's nature conflicts with the narrative we have constructed in our minds, it creates tension within us. This tension is not a punishment. It is a mirror reflecting unresolved aspects of our inner life. The universe does not always deliver messages softly. At times, the truth arrives as unease, disappointment, or confusion. These emotional disturbances demand attention, asking us to examine not only the person before us, but also the ways in which we have contributed to the creation of our own illusions. It is in these moments of confrontation with reality that growth becomes possible, for the discomfort signals that we are being invited to step beyond our habitual patterns of thought and emotion. Accepting this invitation requires courage, patience, and a willingness to observe ourselves without defensiveness or judgment. The patterns that govern our emotional responses often operate beneath the surface of conscious awareness. We attach to people in ways that satisfy unconscious needs, repeating familiar cycles that have roots in past experiences and unresolved wounds. When a message arrives that disrupts these cycles, it can feel threatening because it exposes the fragility of the constructs we have relied upon for emotional stability. Recognizing this is a crucial step toward autonomy. It is not merely about understanding the other person's limitations. It is about understanding how our perceptions, expectations, and projections shape the reality we experience. By examining the discomfort we feel, we uncover layers of internal narratives that have directed our attachment and influenced our judgments. In doing so, we reclaim the power to choose our responses rather than react automatically to external circumstances. The presence of a person in our life, whether harmonious or challenging, serves as a mirror for self-reflection. They reveal the areas in which we have neglected our own growth or ignored the truths of our inner world. This revelation is often unwelcome because it asks us to confront aspects of ourselves that are uncomfortable or inconvenient. Yet within this challenge lies an opportunity, the chance to see clearly, to disentangle projection from reality, and to cultivate a sense of wholeness independent of external validation. Emotional suffering frequently arises not from the other person's actions alone, but from our attachment to the narrative we have constructed around them. By observing this attachment, we gain insight into our unconscious motivations and the unresolved conflicts that influence our interactions. The universe's role in this process is subtle yet precise. It presents experiences, encounters, and revelations in ways that force awareness, encouraging us to examine patterns, perceptions, and projections. These disruptions, though initially disquieting, are invitations to clarity, self-mastery, and deeper understanding. By embracing the discomfort, we align ourselves with a path of growth, learning to perceive others as they truly are, while reclaiming autonomy over our emotional landscape. In this awareness, relationships transform from mirrors of longing into instruments of insight, guiding us toward a conscious and authentic engagement with life. It is a challenging truth to accept, but the person we have placed at the center of our emotional world may not be capable of fulfilling the role we unconsciously assigned to them. This realization can feel unsettling because it forces us to confront the distinction between expectation and reality. We often approach relationships with a silent assumption that others will adapt to our desires, meet our needs, or provide the validation we seek. When this does not occur, disappointment emerges, not necessarily because the individual has failed, but because we have misinterpreted their purpose in our life. Understanding this allows us to separate the value of another person from the function we imagine them to serve. It is a reminder that human beings are autonomous, complex, and often limited by their own experiences, patterns, and capacities. Accepting this truth does not diminish our own significance. Instead, it grants clarity and fosters emotional independence. Projection is at the core of our misperceptions. We imbue others with qualities and expectations that align with our desires, creating an internal narrative in which they occupy the precise role we require. This projected reality often obscures their authentic self, leaving us in a state of unacknowledged illusion. When the universe presents evidence that disrupts this illusion, it can be painful because it highlights the disparity between what we imagined and what exists. Yet within this confrontation lies an opportunity for profound self-reflection. Recognizing the limits of another person's ability to meet our needs invites us to examine the nature of our own attachments, the expectations we carry, and the unresolved aspects of ourselves that drive these projections. It is through this process that emotional growth and clarity emerge. Releasing these projections is not an act of rejection, but of recognition. We begin to understand that fulfillment, stability, and emotional completeness cannot be entrusted solely to another individual. Rather, they are cultivated within the self through awareness, reflection, and acceptance. By disentangling our needs from the imagined capacities of others, we regain agency over our emotional life. This awareness transforms relationships from instruments of dependency into opportunities for authentic engagement. The other person, once a mirror for longing and expectation, becomes instead a figure whose individuality is acknowledged, whose limitations are respected, and whose presence is appreciated without the weight of unrealistic hope. In this clarity, we discover freedom. The universe's timing is precise, often delivering these revelations when we are ready or nearly ready to confront them. Understanding that someone may not meet our imagined expectations is not a defeat. It is a step toward maturity, insight, and self-mastery. By embracing this awareness, we cultivate relationships rooted in authenticity rather than projection, clarity rather than illusion, and respect rather than dependency. In doing so, we create space to engage with life and others with honesty, courage, and a profound recognition of the balance between our desires and reality. It is through this acceptance that emotional liberation becomes possible. Clinging to imagined narratives rather than accepting reality is one of the primary sources of emotional suffering. We often hold tightly to the story we have constructed about someone, believing it to be the truth, and resisting any evidence that challenges this version. This attachment to illusion can obscure clarity, deepen disappointment, and prolong inner conflict. The universe, in its subtle way, presents moments and experiences that force a confrontation with reality, even when we are reluctant to face it. These moments are not punitive. They are invitations to honesty, self-awareness, and transformation. By observing the tension between our expectations and reality, we begin to uncover the patterns of thought and emotional attachment that have shaped our relationships. This is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is an emotional awakening that requires courage, reflection, and a willingness to release illusions that no longer serve our growth. The challenge lies in distinguishing between desire and reality, between longing and the truth of another person's nature. When we recognize that someone may not fulfill the role we have imagined, it is easy to interpret this as a personal failure or a loss. Yet the deeper insight is that the suffering arises not from the other person, but from the projection we have placed upon them. Our minds create narratives that assign meaning, expectation, and emotional weight to actions, gestures, and even silence. This imaginative construction can make it seem as though the world is denying us, when in truth, it is reflecting the internal patterns that have shaped our perception. Acknowledging this allows us to shift focus from external validation to internal understanding, cultivating emotional autonomy and clarity. Releasing these attachments is an act of self-liberation. By letting go of the imagined narrative, we begin to see the person in our life as they truly are, independent of our projections and desires. This does not diminish the connection or the value of the relationship. Rather, it transforms the dynamic into one of authenticity, respect, and mutual recognition. Emotional suffering decreases when we stop attempting to control or predict another person's behavior and instead focus on understanding our own responses, needs, and expectations. The discomfort that initially accompanied this realization becomes a guide, signaling the areas where growth, self-reflection, and self-responsibility are required. The universe communicates through these moments of challenge and revelation, offering lessons in clarity, patience, and insight. By embracing reality rather than clinging to illusion, we open the door to emotional maturity, deeper self-awareness, and healthier engagement with others. Relationships evolve from mirrors of projection into reflections of truth, revealing both the complexity of others and the richness of our own inner world. The pain of letting go is temporary. The understanding it brings is enduring. In this clarity, we find freedom, not by changing the person before us, but by transforming our perception and cultivating inner resilience. Life has a way of teaching through experiences that frustrate, confuse, or challenge us. The people who enter our lives are often instruments of growth, revealing patterns, fears, and unhealed aspects of ourselves that we might otherwise ignore. When someone disappoints, resists, or fails to meet our expectations, it can feel like a setback, but in truth, it is an invitation to look inward. The universe uses these moments to guide us toward awareness, showing us where our projections, attachments, or illusions have been dictating our emotions. This process is rarely comfortable because it confronts the parts of ourselves we would prefer to overlook. Yet within this discomfort lies profound insight, the recognition that personal evolution is not found in the approval, compliance, or validation of another, but in the courage to see clearly, reflect honestly, and act consciously in our own life. Understanding the distinction between external reality and internal projection is essential. We often interpret the behavior of others through a lens shaped by our own expectations, desires, and unresolved patterns. This distorts perception, creating conflict and unnecessary suffering. When the universe presents evidence that disrupts our narrative, it is not punishing us. It is creating an opportunity for self-examination. By observing the disparity between what we imagine and what exists, we gain insight into the unconscious forces that have shaped our attachments. The challenge is to recognize that the discomfort arises not from the other person's limitations, but from our own reliance on projections, narratives, and imagined roles. In this realization lies the potential for emotional autonomy and authentic engagement. Each challenging encounter is an invitation to reclaim agency over our emotional life. By examining the patterns that lead to disappointment or frustration, we begin to understand how our mind has constructed expectations that may be incompatible with reality. This is not a call to withdraw from connection, but rather to approach relationships with clarity, awareness, and respect for the autonomy of others. Growth occurs when we stop seeking fulfillment solely from external sources and cultivate wholeness within ourselves. The lessons embedded in these experiences are subtle but transformative, teaching patience, observation, and the capacity to discern truth from imagination. They encourage us to act consciously, respond with intention, and engage with others without the burden of projected expectations. The universe's interventions are precise and timely. Moments of discomfort, confusion, or disappointment are orchestrated to awaken awareness, to illuminate patterns, and to challenge illusions. By embracing these experiences, we develop the capacity to perceive others clearly, to recognize our own emotional needs, and to act in alignment with truth rather than fantasy. Relationships shift from mirrors of longing to instruments of insight, reflecting both the individuality of others and the depth of our own inner world. This awakening fosters resilience, self-understanding, and authentic engagement, allowing us to navigate life with clarity, maturity, and emotional freedom. Acceptance is one of the most profound steps in emotional maturity. To recognize that someone may not fulfill the role we have imagined for them is not a sign of defeat, but a mark of growth and self-awareness. Often we tie our emotional stability to another's behavior, affection, or validation, believing that our sense of worth is contingent upon their response. This attachment to external confirmation can obscure clarity, create dependency, and perpetuate suffering. By learning to accept the limitations, complexities, and autonomy of others, we reclaim the authority over our emotional life. Acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active recognition of reality and a conscious choice to respond with understanding rather than resistance. It allows us to navigate relationships with honesty, respect, and integrity, unburdened by unrealistic expectations. The process of acceptance requires courage because it challenges deeply ingrained patterns. We may have spent years projecting fantasies, hopes, or ideals onto the people we care about, constructing narratives that mask both their limitations and our own vulnerabilities. When reality confronts these narratives, discomfort arises. Yet, this discomfort is essential, for it signals that we are encountering truth rather than illusion. Emotional growth emerges when we face these moments with honesty and clarity. By separating our projections from the actual nature of another, we develop the ability to engage with them authentically, appreciating who they are rather than who we wish them to be. Acceptance becomes a doorway to inner freedom, transforming relationships from sources of dependency into arenas of genuine connection. Understanding that fulfillment cannot be outsourced to others is central to this awakening. Our emotional equilibrium, our sense of completeness, must originate within ourselves. When we recognize that someone cannot meet every expectation or satisfy every need, we are invited to cultivate self-reliance, self-respect, and emotional resilience. This shift does not diminish connection. Rather, it enhances it by removing the pressure of imagined obligations and fostering a space in which honesty, mutual recognition, and authenticity can flourish. The acceptance of limitations, both ours and theirs, creates balance, clarity, and peace, allowing relationships to exist without distortion, projection, or excessive attachment. The universe often delivers these lessons with subtle precision, orchestrating experiences that challenge illusions and illuminate truth. Accepting reality is not always easy, but it is essential for emotional liberation. By embracing the limitations and autonomy of others, we cultivate insight, self-awareness, and maturity. In doing so, we learn to engage with life consciously, responding to what is rather than what we wish it to be. Relationships evolve into reflections of clarity, authenticity, and mutual respect. Through acceptance, we find freedom, not in controlling others, but in mastering our own perception, expectations, and emotional responses, allowing us to experience life and connection with a profound sense of balance and integrity. The universe has a way of delivering messages only to those who are ready to receive them. Often these messages arrive not as comfort, but as challenges, truths that are uncomfortable, unsettling, or even painful. They are not designed to punish, but to awaken. When we are presented with experiences that disrupt our attachments, illusions, or projections, it is an opportunity to see more clearly, to confront the parts of ourselves we have avoided, and to engage with reality in a more conscious way. The timing of these revelations is rarely random. It aligns with our capacity to process, understand, and grow. The person or situation that triggers discomfort serves as a mirror, reflecting patterns, unresolved conflicts, and the aspects of ourselves that demand attention. Through this process, the universe encourages awareness, emotional maturity, and a deeper understanding of the forces that shape our lives. Recognizing that these messages are intentional requires patience and reflection. We often resist truths that challenge our inner narrative because they force us to abandon familiar illusions. Yet, the discomfort itself is a signal that transformation is possible. By examining our reactions, feelings, and assumptions, we uncover the projections, fears, and unmet needs that have influenced our perception of others. The universe provides these moments as opportunities to reclaim agency over our inner world. Emotional suffering often arises not from the external circumstances, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. In confronting these stories, we begin to disentangle perception from projection, desire from reality, and attachment from understanding. This awareness is the foundation for emotional freedom and authentic engagement with life. The message we receive, however unwelcome, is also an invitation to self-realization. It asks us to accept what is, rather than cling to what we wish it to be. By seeing people and situations clearly, without the distortion of expectation or fantasy, we cultivate discernment and resilience. Relationships transform from mirrors of longing or dependency into instruments of insight and growth. The person who challenges us may not change, and the circumstances may not align with our hopes, yet in embracing this truth, we discover the power of conscious perception. Understanding that the universe delivers messages in alignment with our readiness allows us to approach life with curiosity, courage, and humility, recognizing that even difficult experiences have purpose and meaning in the context of our evolution. Ultimately, these messages are not about judgment or failure, they are about awakening. The universe communicates with precision, guiding us toward clarity, self-awareness, and authenticity. By listening, observing, and reflecting, we gain insight into our own patterns, limitations, and capacities. The freedom that emerges from this process is profound. It allows us to engage with others honestly, to perceive life without distortion, and to respond to challenges with wisdom and composure. Painful as the message may be, it is an initiation into a higher level of consciousness, offering the chance to transform attachment into understanding, projection into recognition, and illusion into truth. In embracing this awakening, we align with the deeper rhythms of life and the subtle guidance of the universe,